All right, it's another Saturday morning. It's time to talk about stuff that really needs to be talked about, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And I had a different show planned for this week, and then somebody brought something up during my gaming show yesterday, and we started talking about it. I don't like to talk about politics on my gaming channel. That's why I created this channel and this brand. And then I realized people are the problem. People are the problem. And until we start addressing the fact that people are the problem in the way we look at things and the way we address things and all of that, we can't fix the problems. I can talk about school reform. I can talk about tax reform. I can talk about statesmen versus politicians. I can talk about gender equality or gender fairness. We can talk about all that. But until we realize that it's people are the problem, we're just spinning wheels, man. We're just spinning wheels. It's, one tire's stuck in the mud, the other tire spinning, trying to go, the other one's doing nothing. Want to look at a bunch. Why don't you have this channel followed? I don't know. Why don't you have this channel followed? There you go. See, now you'll know. So today's going to be a lot of looking at stuff. We're going to be looking at a lot of things. And, I pull a lot of different things from a lot of different places. And remember, these are going to be some people's views. And the first one is from Psychology Today, quite a while ago, 2017 article. But it's, most problems are people problems. We're gonna start with that. Our lives are filled with many challenges. All of us struggle with personal problems, stress, anxiety, depression, self-doubt, addiction, worries about our health, our finances, our future. And I think that right there is the pretty much the driving factor of people's lives. The number of Americans, I don't have the overall stats, but 50% of Americans suffer from anxiety, depression, or some combination of both. And that's just the ones that we know about, because that's just the ones that have self-ID'd, that are in help, that are in mental health treatment, the ones that report but don't get treatment. So about 1 out of every 2 people have anxiety, depression, or some combination of both. Our relationship with our partners, children, and other family members are often riddled with conflict. And our relationships with our friends, neighbors, bosses, coworkers are challenging as well. And I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to dispute this. And, all these problems are complex and their solutions elusive, yet they share a common link. For the most part, they are all caused by human beings. Most of the problems we face within ourselves and our relationships and with other people are in society are caused by people. Granted, a few problems don't require human collusion, tornadoes, earthquake, natural disasters, but most do. And I think this is a really powerful thing that a lot of people have to face the reality of. Problems are people problems. Human behavior is by far the single largest cause of difficulties that each of us experience. Therein lies the basic paradox. Paradox. Therein lies a basic paradox about human nature. On one hand, human beings have used their intelligence, creativity, and ability to work together to improve life. But on the other hand, human beings also behave in highly maladaptive ways that create a slew of social, relational, and personal problems. I don't think at this point anybody's disagreeing. How can people be so intelligent and effective and yet so dysfunctional? What's wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Philosophers, psychologists, writers, theologians, and others have wrestled with this question for centuries. I would argue that they've wrestled with this question since they could question. We focus mostly on ourselves and our lives, and we view the world mostly from our own perspective, and this is going to be very important for the rest of today's show, which is why I led with this piece. We view the world mostly from our own perspective. People are generally more preoccupied with themselves than they need to be. When people commit crimes, it's almost always because they've put their own interests so far above other people's well-being that they steal, rob, assault, murder, or otherwise hurt other people to get what they want. At the extreme, terrorist actions are rooted in abject egocentrism and selfishness, and most wars begin when some party feels justified in attacking someone to obtain some collectively selfish goal. This was written in 2017, and I think it, to a T, describes what we have going on in the Ukraine right now. Russia wants to restore the glory of the former USSR, wants those natural resources, that xenon, and has been allowed to expand aggressively with nobody challenging them. Prejudice and discrimination are fundamentally self-centered reactions, as are greed, deceit, and treating others unfairly. Many of our arguments with other people reach an impasse because everybody is certain they are right. And this unfounded certainty in our beliefs feeds political, religious, and cultural conflicts at every turn. We get into heated arguments with each other about things that don't matter very much, simply because others don't agree with the way we see things. You guys, obviously this isn't the first time I've read this article. I've read this article before, many years ago, probably 2017. And I say this on my shows all the time. We get into arguments with people because even if we're wrong, people confront us that we're wrong. You will never change somebody's mind by showing them they're wrong and pointing that they're wrong. The way you change somebody's mind is helping them discover that they're wrong. Even the privacy of our own minds, our preoccupation with ourselves often feeds ongoing anxiety, stress, shame, and dissatisfaction. Of course, to live happily and effectively, we have to think about ourselves, but our self-thoughts are frequently obsessive and distressing. Why aren't I thinner? Why can't I work out? And I have a picture to show you that's gonna show you why this starts at such a young age. People often look for ways to turn off their unwanted mental chatter, whether through positive means, exercise and meditation, or with less beneficial strategies, such as use of alcohol or drugs. In upcoming posts, we'll look into this paradox of human nature, the ways in which the normal human tendency to be self-centered, egocentric, and selfish creates problems and undermines the quality of our lives. We will also discuss ways that we can enhance our own lives. Well, I'm not going to look at all those other articles because I got a lot of other stuff I want to look at today. But got an image here, and I've shown a lower version of this image on my gaming shows. I'm going to show the more detailed one today. So we wonder why young men don't amount to anything, right? We wonder why young men can't be happy, and the good young men. You got the nice guy, right? And for those of you that are on the podcast, unfortunately, there's an image. But you have a nice guy going after the sweet girl, and the sweet girl is going after the jerk. And now what happens is you've got the nice guy going after the sweet girl's going after the jerk. The jerk is going after, on this image, it's the bitch. But that's not really the right word. This is a more moderated version of this image. You've got the jerk going after the more promiscuous young lady in high school. The slut, the whore, the tramp, the girl who's easy. That's who the jerk is going for. And now, as we grow this, the nice guy goes after the sweet girl goes after the jerk goes after the promiscuous girl is going after the rich guy. So at the end of the day, the rich guy's with the promiscuous girl. The jerk has no choice but to settle for the sweet girl. And the nice guy's left alone. And you can see he's gone from having a normal face to the memeable face. Can't really make any headway. Now, not everybody believes this. And not everybody likes Jordan Peterson. I like Jordan Peterson. I think he's very intelligent. I think he's got a lot of good takes. And one of the takes that he has is... women select men. That makes them nature, because nature is what selects. And you can say, well, it's only symbolic that women are nature. It's like, no, it's not symbolic. The woman is the gatekeeper, right, for productive success. And you can't get more like nature than that. In fact, it's the very definition of nature. I think Jordan Peterson has a lot of really good quotes. We're gonna look on. For a second there, I thought it'd lock into a ring. Yeah, you would, but you end up with this idea that you have this dysfunctional scenario going on where nice guys aren't selected at a young age for mating purposes, and then we wonder why the world is filled with a bunch of jerks. Well, they're filled with a bunch of jerks because the nice guys don't get anywhere by being nice guys. The the expression "nice guys finish last" isn't necessarily wrong. Some of these, what are we doing? What are you doing? Don't do that. Some of these other quotes from Jordan Peterson, there's a couple I want to look at. I think right here, the second quote on this page: "When you have something to say, silence is a lie." I read that, and that's kind of what made me start doing this show, because I have something to say. I have a camera, I have a mic, I've got a bunch of opinions, and I have something to say, and I'm not going to make the world I'm not going to change anybody's mind about the world, right? I'm not going to change anybody's mind about the world by just sitting here being silent. Another really good one, he says, "You're going to pay a price for every bloody thing you do and everything you don't do. You don't get to choose to not pay a price. You get to choose which poison you're going to take, and that's it." That's a really profound thought. And when we start looking at some of these news articles here in a minute, you pay a price for everything. You pay a price for absolutely everything you do, right? There is no such thing as you're not going to pay the price. And I think that's a really powerful statement. If you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, then you might as well do, right? You might as well do. If you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You can only find out what you actually believe by watching how you act. You simply don't know what you believe before that. You are too complex to understand yourself. It's getting a little existential. If you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. That's pretty powerful. If you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. If you fulfill your obligations every day, you don't need to worry about the future. That's pretty potent too, right? Life is suffering. Love is the desire to see unnecessary suffering. Whatever. Truth is the handmaiden of love. Dialogue is the pathway to truth. Humility is the recognition of personal insufficiency and the willingness to learn. To learn is to die voluntarily and be born again in great ways and small. So speech must be untrammeled, so that dialogue can take place, so that we can all humbly learn, so that truth can serve love, so that suffering can be rated. Too many fucking vowels for me. So that we can all stumble forward to the kingdom of God. Okay, this is where I think Jordan Peterson loses a lot of people. I think your philosophy is your philosophy, your religion is your religion. I think putting religion out there is what turns people off Jordan Peterson, and I wanted to get to that quote, even though I can't pronounce all the crazy vowel words, because I think this is where Jordan Peterson loses some people. That doesn't mean the other 95 things he says aren't good. You can look at the 5 things he says that have religion in them, and you can say that those 5 aren't for me, but I'm going to listen to the rest. Now, this is where I say, remember, I've talked about it. We have a majority and a significant minority. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about how I disagree with the change in the United States about our president and our vice president. The 1796, 1800, 1804 elections, where we changed that presidents will pick a running mate instead of presidents being in office with the person that gets the second amount of votes being the vice president. Let's talk about that here for a second. Here's a big one. 2 words no president wants to hear. There's something ringing in Joe Biden's ears that no president ever wants to hear. Special counsel. These are independent lawyers appointed, usually by attorney generals, to look, without conflict of interest, into actions involving the president or his administration. While you might have forgotten their names, you're familiar with their work. Watergate, Iran-Contra, Whitewater, the Russian investigations, Teapot Dome. Other investigations include inquiries into George Bush's administration leak of the undercover CIA agent whose husband questioned intelligence about Iraq, the government's untimely deadly siege of the Branch Davidian compound, and Jimmy Carter's peanut business. It's fair. Since Carter, only Barack Obama has emerged from the White House without having a special counsel or special prosecutor look into his administration. You guys heard me say the other week, I wish that the states would have a constitutional convention and repeal the amendment that limits terms to 2, because I think we need President Obama back. There are 2 special counsels at the same time. Jack Smith is looking into the multiple investigations involving former President Donald Trump, ranging from his effort to overturn the 2020 election to his handling of classified data and stonewalling that led to the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago last summer, in which they did find classified materials. The other is Robert Hur, who will assess what should happen as a result of classified documents being found both in a Washington, D.C. office used by President Biden following his vice presidency and locked up in a garage at his Wilmington, Delaware home where he keeps his Corvette. All right. This is where everybody needs to just settle down because you're all wrong. You've got all of the staunch Biden supporters screaming at the top of their lungs, pointing their finger at President Trump and how he should be prosecuted, he should be put in jail, he removed classified documents, he stored classified documents at his resort improperly, he did, and this list goes on and on and on, and it damages the country. Because you've got the current president's party and backers yelling at the Republicans, saying your president is a shitbird, he's a thief, he's a criminal, and now all of a sudden the current president is sitting there, and while he's president, there are classified documents locked up in his home. So now what do we do? Who's the bigger party? Who has the moral high ground? Who is morally superior? Nobody's morally superior. All have shame. And this is where I think everybody needs to take a step back, right? Everybody needs to take a step back and say, this is insanity. This is absolutely insanity. And people need to stop. I'm going to dive into an article that makes this even worse. First of all, I think this picture is, although this picture, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think that there's a lot in this picture. And again, for those of you in the podcast, I'm sorry, but today's a very artifact-heavy show. But you have a picture of a woman at a Trump rally with a ponytail, a blonde, white T-shirt, hair, ponytail. It would have only been more cliche if the ponytail had been pulled through the hat. And then you have a man in the audience looking up at her. And then everybody else is looking at Donald Trump on stage with their cameras and so on and so forth. I think the picture says 1,000 words, but I'm not sure which words. But as we go through, this is an article from GQ from 2018 by Drew McCrary. You might have missed it because there's so much awful news all the time, but the president threw himself a big old-fashioned rally in my childhood state of Minnesota last week. He held this rally right in the middle of an immigrant baby jail scandal that is, and will continue to be, a humanitarian disaster. And it would be a political disaster too if Trump's presidency weren't already an internal bag of dog shit aflame on everyone's doorstep. So now I'm gonna be an elitist right here, but I have a hard time treating people seriously when they start sentences with conjunctions. And is a conjunction. It's not, you don't start sentences with and, but it's GQ. We're not looking for the epitome of journalistic writing. We're not going to GQ to give somebody the Pulitzer Prize, right? But to use the phrase Trump's presidency weren't already an eternal bag of dog shit, a flame on everyone's doorstep, you automatically alienated 49.9%, or I think if I pulled the number out, 48.7% of readers who stumbled upon this article would turn it off because they voted for Trump in the election. But again, a conjunction at the beginning of a sentence. But of course, when Trump touched down in Duluth last week, he didn't have to worry about anyone, save for a lone protester confronting him for his inhumanity. Instead, he still got the love and validation he so desperately craves from the heartland. Whenever responsible people back in Washington tell him he's a monster, here's the snippet that really broke my brain. Our republic today is prouder and greater than it ever was before. We're reopening NASA. We're going to space, Trump says, though NASA has been open and going to space this whole time. And the crowd chants, Space Force, and it's 2018. This is actually a big problem. And I Trump this, Trump yes, Trump no, Trump regardless. The fact that Trump is able to incite the ignorant, uneducated masses into thinking that he was the president that was going to reopen NASA and go back to space, it's mind-boggling. But remember, I did a segment on we need U.S. school reform. Why do we have so many ignorant, uneducated people? Because they're not getting educated. The public school systems in this country are completely failing them. So it's hard for me to say all these people following Trump are idiots. They're not idiots. They are the walking, talking, reproducing workforce that the American school system produced. Go down a little bit here. Of course, they cheered for a figment of Trump's imagination and not his disastrous real-world policies. Of course they did. Trump himself predicted as much when he went ahead and okayed the separation of immigrant families at the border. Just a day before Trump signed it, one person close to the president said he told advisors that separating families at the border was the best deterrent to illegal immigration, and that he said, my people love it. I don't think anybody is going to try to make the argument that Trump should go down as one of the best presidents the United States has ever had, because he's not. He's absolutely not. But obviously, there is a reason why people flock to him, because he's trying something different, right? He's trying something different. And if you have 200 years of what doesn't work well, and then all of a sudden you have somebody that's willing to, and I hate to say it this way, but you got somebody that's willing to make an omelet, and to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. Maybe, just maybe, and I don't believe this, but maybe there's some parallel universe where it works. Maybe Trump was exactly what I said he was going to be. He was the absolute best president to have for that time, because the Democratic Party should have come up with somebody better to run than Sleepy Joe Biden. Grandpa Joe, it was time to put Grandpa Joe to bed a long time ago. But he won the presidency because he was the better alternative than the bad guy. Are you telling me that between the entire Republican Party and the entire Democratic Party, we couldn't come up with somebody better? We've been running these fossils, these problems. Like, Hillary Clinton was actually able to run for president after Benghazi. How was that even possible? Hillary Clinton was able to run for president after the classified documents on a private server scandal. I'll tell you right now, if you're in the military and you accidentally move files from the high side to the low side, the classified side to the unclassified side, that's a career ender for you. If a military member were to be found with classified documents on their personal laptop, they would go to jail. Period. They would go to jail. Period. If you need to work from home, they issue you a laptop. It's a government laptop, and it's a piece of junk. I had to get special permission to work on a project on my home computer because I needed a computer that had more power than my laptop. And all it was unclassified data, but I had to get special permission to work on it while they requisitioned me a new laptop. And that was unclassified data. That was attendance at an unclassified seminar. Because it's not about ability, it's about the cult of personality and money. Right, and that's why I say, like, you guys know I'm running a Kickstarter, and I don't have the clout to go out there and raise money. If I tried to run for president, I wouldn't be able to do the fundraising that Hillary Clinton can do, Bill Clinton was able to do, Trump is able to do, Biden's able to do, because I'm a little too radical for both parties. I'm not a likable person. I work for a company monitored by the SEC. I can't use my own keyboard or mouse without somebody approving it first. Yep. Everything needs to be approved. Absolutely. Yep. Thank you for chiming in, first time chatter. I love first time chatters. I guess the Snowden story made it a lot stricter. Well, the Snowden story made it a lot Snowden's story. Actually, if you know the whole story, then the thing about Snowden was I want to split it into two. He revealed a massive vulnerability in the way the security was set up. That was one problem. Number two, this country keeps secrets even from itself. And I'm not going to get myself in trouble by saying what secrets we keep from itself, because I know some of the dirty secrets. But the military keeps secrets from Congress. Congress keeps secrets from the president. The president keeps secrets from Congress. The president keeps secrets from the people in the people in the country. Some things need to be kept secret. I'm not going to dispute. We're currently talking about how dumb the American people are, about how a person is smart but people are stupid, and the American people don't need to know everything. They don't. Because if the American people knew everything, then the whole world would know everything. I tell this story in the first Gulf War. Geraldo Rivera was embedded with a mechanized division that was storming Baghdad. And he was live on TV, and he had rocks and all these things. And if you guys are old enough to remember the live footage of the invasion of Baghdad, or the invasion of Iraq to get Iraq out of Kuwait, there's a military officer goes up to Geraldo's little rock formation and kicks it, like literally drives his foot around it. The cameraman gets grabbed by one guard. Geraldo gets grabbed by another guard. And people were like, free press, free press. Free press is great, but not when you were given permission to be embedded with a group of active combatants and you're broadcasting live where they are and what their objective is and where they're going. Because what, you think the Iraqi military command isn't watching that and saying, oh, there's 75 soldiers, 4 tanks, and 1 news reporter right there. Let's hit it with a rocket. Let's hit it with a couple of rockets. I understand that people want free press, but the press is dumb. The press releases stuff. I want to go to America is a broken democracy at the moment. Well, I want to remind people, and you need to keep telling, America is not a democracy. America is a democratic republic. There is a difference between a democratic republic and a democracy. A democracy is what Ross Perot wanted. Ross Perot was the first presidential candidate who spoke out about using the technology of the time for every American to be able to weigh in on issues. Remember, if you live in America, or you live in most of the democratic countries of the world, you live in a democratic republic. You have a voice in electing a voice who makes decisions on your behalf. Right? You have a voice to elect a voice to make decisions on your behalf. What you don't have is you don't have the right to vote on things directly, which I think, given the internet, given connectivity, given the ability to poll, I don't think we should have polls on the news anymore of 1,500 respondents that are used to represent the entire country. Country has 328 million people in it, and a poll of 1,500 people is meant to be representative. If you can get millions of people to respond to a poll, then maybe you don't show the poll results because it inflames people. But people constantly say we're a democracy. It's sad this article is even associated with news, right? Going by our polls, our leadership does not accurately reflect the views of a majority of our population. And yet, ever since Trump was elected, I've had a very difficult time comprehending the fact that over 60 million people voted for him. Now, this right here is the big part of the problem. I have a very difficult time comprehending the fact that over 60 million people voted for him. voted for that guy. It was an electorally unforgivable act, and yet they went ahead and did it anyway. This right here is what worries me about giving some people a voice. Because you're saying that 60 million people who voted with their voice did an unforgivable act. Well, who are you to say that? I think the problem we have here is that if there are, if there are, number of registered voters in the US. If there are, they don't give me a total number. If there are enough people, it's like you can't, like you think that this would be an easy number to get to. But if you have 60 million people vote for a candidate, how dare you tell them that they did something that was electorally unforgivable? These voters are always portrayed as beholden to the forces outside their control, socioeconomic and political. But it is the will of the same people that put Trump in power and have approved of nearly all the Republican Party's efforts to mutilate democracy to better serve its own greed. See, these are the people that I think should be. This is why freedom of the press is so dangerous, because freedom of the press, the way it was written into the way it was written into the Bill of Rights, is not the way it was intended back when they wrote the Bill of Rights. Freedom of the press was written in order to report the news, not to protect your right to have an opinion, and you wrap your opinion in the trappings of news. That is why you have the news section. You have the news section of the newspaper and the editorial section. And I haven't read a hard copy newspaper in a long time. But the last I checked, they no longer separate news and editorial. Op-eds. I used to be an op-ed writer in college. I had an article. And back in 1998, when the height of Hispanic immigration was happening in this country, I wrote an article, and I said, I remember the title of the article was America for Tax-Paying Americans. And in the article, I actually said, I am the youngest son of an Irish immigrant, and I respect the country, and I respect the fact that it allows immigrants to come to this country. As I'm starting this article, I do want to start with saying, I am not saying this is about Hispanic immigrants. I'm saying this article is about all immigrants, and I'm willing to acknowledge that my people, my family, my extended family, my island family, the island of Ireland, we are just as bad about illegal immigration as anybody else. I said, we need to tighten down illegal immigration in this country across the board, because far too many people are coming into the country illegally. I am not against legal immigration, but as long as the problem is illegal immigration, we will never be able to fix streamlining legal immigration if all of our resources are tied up stopping illegal immigration. And I actually, I submitted this op-ed piece to the administration. They approved it, but they said, this isn't going to make you any friends. I said, I'm not interested in making friends. I'm interested in sparking discussions. My school had about a 15% Hispanic population, and almost all of them signed a petition to have me removed from the newspaper, which I thought was quite funny. And I went to class, and there were some Hispanic classmates of mine in political science courses that turned the class into a discussion about why as a white Irish American, I shouldn't be allowed on the student newspaper writing an op-ed piece about immigration. And I remember I had a an Eastern European professor. And he said, so you don't like what the man had to say? And I wasn't a man yet. I was a young man. Probably 18 and a half. I was a young man. He said, you don't like what the man had to say. So instead of providing anything in a counter argument, you just want him kicked off the newspaper for his views. And I remember watching this Eastern European professor completely destroy the 2 or 3 kids in the class. The 2 or 3 Hispanic kids in the class who said he shouldn't be allowed to have a voice because he doesn't represent the school. And Grumpy Old Man said, I'm sure they had an opportunity to pick a representative to write an op-ed, an argument. That's what he said. He said, and I forgot what country he's from. It was one of the Estans. He said, I'm from a country where if this young man had been brave enough to write this piece, this young man wouldn't be sitting in class today. Because this young man might not be alive today if he spoke out against what the party line is. If you don't like what he has to say, then challenge him to a debate. Because in my political science school, we had debates. Challenge him to a debate. And we'll go down to the auditorium. We'll give you guys 3 weeks to prepare. And none of them did. And the professor, he egged these 2-3 students on for the rest of the semester. He said, so when's your debate? And he looked at me and says, have you been challenged to a debate? And I said, no. And he became one of my mentors. And it was a matter of, it wasn't the fact that anything I said in the article was specific. And as I said, I prefaced in the first paragraph, I'm not talking about Mexican immigration. I'm not talking about South American immigration. I'm talking about all illegal immigration. And I'm acknowledging that Europeans immigrate into America just as illegally as Mexicans do. But you know what really struck me as odd? It struck me as odd 22 years later, when there was a rally against illegal immigration, and they're talking about Middle Easterners coming to the Indians, Pakistanis, Afghanis, Indians coming to this country illegally. And who's in the crowd? Mexicans, Brazilians, Guatemalans, Argentinians. So, yeah, ex-USSR. But he probably knew very well that canceling behavior. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You converse this and revisit it on Biden. Yes, we're going to get there. The people did this. I know it's comforting to think that there's a spell Trump has over them, but politicians and the media lead these voters to dark places. But what if it's the other way around? What if they suck? Because as lousy as Trump's takes are, I promise you that people attending the Duluth rally had even worse takes. And as much as they give Trump validation, he more than reciprocates the favor. He makes them feel heard and gives them permission to blame everyone else but themselves for the state of things. He makes them feel heard. And he gives them permission to blame everyone else but themselves for the state of things. You are part of the problem. You just don't know you're part of the problem because you're on the side of the coin that everybody else is calling their problem. Every coin has 3 sides, by the way. It has your side, their side, and it has that very delicate edge that if you try really hard, you can balance the problem on. Just like Trump, they lust for attention and thrill at receiving it. He tells them what they want to hear, and he's far from the only person in a position of authority from doing so. This is the problem. How do you win elections? Right? How do you win elections? You win elections by telling people what they want to hear. If you could win elections by telling people what they didn't want to hear, guess what? The world would be a better place. Never have I ever been a popular leader in the military telling my guys and my girls they got to work on the weekend. Nothing sucks more than 6 a.m. Friday formation, getting ready to tell people that we're going to barbecue at noon and go play soccer because we've already worked a 48-hour week and it's only Friday morning, and then we're going to have a nice easy weekend, only to find out that we have weekend operations to do and it's all hands on deck. Nothing sucks more than looking at one of your top leaders who's about to go on leave and saying, leave's canceled. Why? You're going to find out in 3 hours, but I wanted to at least give you a heads up. Your leave's canceled. And they're like, you can't do that. Said, unfortunately for you, my friend, I wear my rank on my collar, not on my sleeve. And yes, your leave is canceled. 3 hours later, the news breaks that we're invading Libya, or we're liberating Libya, or we're bombing Libya, or whatever we did in Libya, because even the people that were involved with Libya don't understand what we did in Libya. And Libya is all of a sudden being bombed, and they're like, what did we do? What is it you want? From what I've seen, the most fervent and anti-legal immigration opinions are those held by people who have legally immigrated. Yes, absolutely. There's nothing like a person who is a citizen who speaks broken English being accosted by Americans who say you should go back to your own country, and then you have to look at them and say, well, then your great-great-great-great-grandparents need to go back to their own country because the natives would like all of their land back. Everybody who's not Native American, legally or illegally, immigrated into this country. Remember, there was a time we threw the doors open. We wanted everybody. We had a really big country and not enough people. I'm going to jump topics here real quick, and we're going to talk about stop using Hamlin's cardiac arrest for the anti-vax agenda. The survival and recovery of Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin after his collapse during last week's Monday Night Football game has been a happy but all too real demonstration of the importance of immediate CPR and proper defibrillation in crucial few minutes following a sudden cardiac arrest. But, stop using but to start a sentence. But while Hamlin's near-death experience traumatized his family, teammates, the NFL, and millions of people who witness his struggle live on television, for others it has become just another crass opportunity to promote vaccine disinformation. In the first quarter of the game, Cincinnati Bengals leading Bills 7-3, blah, blah, blah. When they collided, Hamlin's left chest absorbed the blow. For those watching the game, it looked like a routine play, but then Hamlin rose to his feet, fell backwards. The subsequent televised effort to save the 24-year-old's life was heroic but difficult to watch. Okay, so I'm just going to say this. I hope he sues the broadcasters, the television network, the NFL for not cutting away. You don't need to televise the efforts to save somebody's life. While the stunned commentators on ESPN and fans around the world try to make sense of what they had witnessed, the internet erupted with a blizzard of unfounded rumors. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, quickly parroted an unfounded anti-vax conspiracy theory, tweeting, "This is a tragic and all too familiar sight right now. Athletes dropping suddenly." Athletes dropping suddenly. Can someone let me know? Are we dropping athletes like flies? Are athletes falling out in every game? In every game we have, are athletes falling out? Because I don't think that we have. I mean, I see people get injured every game, but I don't see athletes falling out. The Charlie Kirk tweet, by the way, "This is a tragic and all too familiar sight right now. Athletes dropping suddenly. Go to hell. Go directly to hell. You're the worst use of flesh and bones ever. Unconscionable. And you're part of the problem. What a piece of human excrement you are, Charlie boy. Are you for real? You are despicable, reprehensible. Fuck you. What a horrible person you are. The best time to delete this post was immediately after posting it. The second best time is now. You're disgusting." Yes, exactly. Nothing in that tweet saying it's vaccine related, right? Nothing in this tweet is saying it's vaccine related. I'm more concerned, right? I am more concerned that people have connected the two dots I mean, I'm concerned that Charlie Kirk is an idiot. This is an all too familiar sight right now. Athletes dropping suddenly. I don't think athletes are dropping suddenly, but I don't see any connection to an anti-vax thing. Is this a stupid post? Yes, it is. Dr. Drew Pinsky, otherwise known as Dr. Drew, an internist and television personality, tweeted similar language. So disturbing. Another athlete who dropped suddenly. Prayers for Hamlin. Not sure if you're watching the game, but whatever you believe, send it his way. This doesn't look good. Instead of trying to capitalize on this young man's traumatic injury and spout your anti-vax lies, why don't you take 5 minutes and learn something about comodocodosis and educate yourself? What are we talking about here? Where is all the anti-vax stuff coming from? So disturbing. Another athlete who dropped suddenly. Prayers for Hamlin. Not sure if you're watching the game, but whatever you believe, send it his way. If you only read this article, you're assuming, although the tweets didn't mention COVID-19 vaccines outright, the implications were as clear as day. What? What implications? I do not see any implications to COVID-19 vaccines in either of these posts, especially this post. Prayers for Hamlin. Not sure if you're watching the game, but whatever you believe, send it his way. This doesn't look good. Prayers for this young man. No, it does not, but I'm hopeful. The fact that medical personnel were on site is a positive, and that he was attended to immediately gives me an element of hope. How many jabs? Does it matter? Does it matter? I'll give you a story. I'm sure my friend wouldn't mind. You guys know when you get vaccines, my wife is a former IBT, immunization technician. My wife was responsible for knowing which shots could be given together and which shots, once you get, you need 30 days. Now, for those of you that know, we have some live virus vaccines and we have some dormant vaccines, and you need the people giving out the vaccines need to know what they're doing. My wife was trained by a guy who wasn't very good at his job and damn near killed a kid by ignoring a note in the kid's file and then giving the kid a second jab of something that the children's hospital had said, don't give this kid the second jab in the series. Don't give the kid the second jab in the series. What we're going to do is we're going to wait until the window for the second jab, because you got some shots for your kids, you got to get a shot and then you have a window to get the second shot, and if you don't get the second shot, then you got to start the series over. They said don't give the kid the second shot in that series. We're going to wait until the window is missed, and we're going to give the kid an alternative vaccine. Well, the sergeant wasn't paying attention, stabbed the kid with the needle, and the kid almost died. My buddy went in for one of his vaccines. He was deploying. He went in got his vaccines. He got a call the next day that they had missed the shot. He went in the next day, got the shots. Within 4 hours, we were calling an ambulance for him, and he was being transported to the hospital, and he spent 7 days in the ICU because of the reaction of the vaccines. Had he gotten them all at the same time, would have been okay. I'm not a smart enough person to understand why if you get them on the same day, it's okay, but if you get them on different days, it's a problem. But, right? I am not about to start beating the drum of anti-vax, because there's a handful of people who might have an adverse reaction. If you've ever watched the Penn and Teller anti-vax thing, and I'm gonna give you guys the link. I can't show it on the show because obviously it's Penn and Teller stuff, although I do want to write to Penn and Teller and say can I use this? But Penn and Teller do a video about vaccinations and how vaccinations don't cause autism. But even if vaccinations caused autism, which they, and as Penn Jillette says, which they fucking don't. But even if they did, rolling the dice in your kid being 1 out of 110 kids that get autism from vaccines, a 0.9% chance that your kid is going to be the kid that gets autism from the vaccine is better than the fact that without any of the kids' vaccines, they've got like a 45% chance of survival. Now, when I say that to people, they get all mad and they say, well, I never had my vaccinations and I lived. Well, I've never been hit by a car. Let me go play in traffic. The reason why you didn't contract measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, polio, whooping cough is because everybody around you was inoculated. Everybody around you had gotten the vaccine. So because everyone around you isn't contracting measles and you're not contracting measles, remember, you don't want measles. You don't want mumps. You don't want polio. Because if you get it, there's a chance your life is over. I'm so tired of anti-vaxxers because you're literally running around listening to the dumbest people. And you're trying to make an argument based on the dumbest people speaking. They said, look at all of these ingredients in vaccines. If vaccines were safe, you should be able to put it on a spoon and swallow it. And if you did that with most of the vaccines, it would kill you. Which is true. At the same time, when you look at an anti-vaxxer and you say, if broccoli is so healthy for you, you should be able to boil it down and inject it into your veins. And guess what would happen? It would kill you. Conspiracy theories live in people's heads rent-free. People love them but won't admit it. I like myself a good conspiracy theory if it's plausible. I like a good conspiracy theory if it's plausible. If it's a completely implausible one, I don't want it. Obviously, yeah, the person reading the article was a mind reader. Former New York columnist and prolific vaccine opponent Alex Berenson. When I saw the video of what happened, my immediate reaction, beyond fear for Hamlin's life, was I suspect the same as yours. Had Damar Hamlin suffered cardiac arrest? Were the mRNA vaccines ultimately responsible, perhaps by causing myocarditis that left him vulnerable? Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, before the COVID vaccines, we didn't see athletes dropping dead on the playing field like we do now. How many people are dying suddenly? Time to investigate. I don't know. How many people are dying suddenly? Let's find out. Let's take a look, right? Let's take a look, because there's a bullshit article, and I love bullshit articles. Claim. Where are you at? Claim. 2 researchers found that more than 1,500 athletes have suffered cardiac arrest since the COVID-19 vaccines began, compared to a previous average of 29 athletes per year. AP assessment. False. The researchers cited a number from a blog that lists news stories about recent deaths and medical emergencies among people of all ages from all over the world, some of which were attributed to other causes, such as cancer. The previous figure, meanwhile, is from a 2006 study that specifically reviewed literature of reports of sudden deaths among athletes under 35. Comparing the 2 sources with different methodologies is not scientifically sound, experts told the AP Press, or told the Associated Press. Cardiologist Peter McCullough and researcher Shore looked into the trend. European sports leagues, they found that prior to COVID, there were roughly 29 cardiac arrests in those European sports per year. Fox's Tucker Carlson claimed in a segment Tuesday night, since the vax campaign began, there have been more than 1,500 total cardiac arrests. Carson was in fact referencing a letter, not a rigorous study. The letter does not claim 1,598 athletes suffered cardiac arrest. The letter does claim that 1,598 athletes suffered cardiac arrest, 1,101 of which were deadly outcome. But it simply cites a blog, goodsciencing.com, for that figure. So it's not real research. Anybody can write a letter to the editor and then quote an article that has no academic rigor. This is what concerns me left, right, and center about our modern media. We have Tucker Carlson, who's regurgitating bullshit and doesn't put eyeballs on it. Those of you that know me, you know that I am in fact an ordained minister. I am not your run-of-the-mill. I'm not a cafeteria Catholic. I'm an ordained minister. That's real truth. A mentor of mine, his name is Lee Strobel. He was an investigative journalist turned minister, and he had a great thing. It's called How Many Eyeballs? In journalism, 2 pairs of eyeballs. If you're going to cite something as eyewitness testimony, you need 2 sets of eyeballs. If you guys have never seen the studies where they do an accident, they have a crowd of people that all witness the same event. They separate all those people, and then they get facts from the people. What color was the car? How fast was it going? What make and model was the car? Were the windows up? Were the windows down? Was the driver a male or a female? How old? What race? You literally, when they do this experiment and they show you how unreliable eyewitness testimony is, you have a white male driving a red car at 25 miles an hour through a parking lot and zooms out, and you'll get anything between it was a black woman to it was a Jeep to it was a drop top to a convertible, because people see what they want to see. Eyewitness testimony is completely unreliable. But if you have two eyewitnesses that tell almost the same story, you can almost get down with the similarities. If you're only reporting the similarities, then you're okay. We have op-ed people who do no research, who do absolutely no research, which is a travesty. You're doing absolutely no research into what you're doing. You're doing no research into what you're reporting. And it's like the old telephone game. It's like the rumor mill, man. It's like the rumor mill. What happens with the rumor mill is one person sees something, right? One person sees something. They tell people. Those people they tell people. And pretty soon you have a completely unrealistic and, unacceptable story. For example, I was married. I am married. I was married to an airman, and I was an officer. My wife was an airman, and it was very, very awkward for us. It was a very, very awkward situation for my wife and I, because when we would go places, every single time we would go places, we would get the whole, you can't be married. And yes, we can, because we were married before I got my commission. And then one of my lieutenants was married to an enlisted, and it was the same thing. She was married to the enlisted as a civilian, and then she got her commission. And so what we ended up doing was she and I would just go to official functions together. Lieutenant, we would just go to the official functions together, and then we didn't have to deal with that. But then all of a sudden, even though we arrived to the event in separate vehicles, and we left the event in separate vehicles, after one of the events, we ended up in the commander's office on Monday morning, and they say, well, are you two having an affair? Because remember, in the military, affairs are against the law. It's Article 120B, adultery. And we looked at the commander and we were like, we can't win. And the commander's like, what do you mean? If we come with our enlisted spouses, then people approach us and say we can't be married to each other. If we go together to appear at the official function, we get told that we're having an affair. And so I just told the commander, I said, I'm done. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, I'm just done. I'm not coming to these social functions, official functions anymore. I'm just not showing up because it's too much ass pain. And the commander's like, well, people saw you. People saw us what? People saw you leave together. So it's nighttime and I walked my lieutenant to her car before I went to my car. No, they saw you leave in the same vehicle. Really? They saw you go upstairs at the hotel. Really? Because that didn't happen. People make up shit because they like a good story. Wonder if he had any stimulants like creatine before the game, not like an overdose, but this plus that kind of thing. Probably. He probably had acceptable amounts of pre-game stuff. If you guys didn't hear about this one, a school staffer searched the backpack of a Virginia 6-year-old before the shooting. Now the school will install metal detectors. A 6-year-old shot a teacher in class. Rich Neck Elementary School in Virginia will install walk-through metal detectors after officials were alerted last week. A 6-year-old student who allegedly shot his teacher might have had a weapon but failed to find it after the search. Before last week's shooting of a first-grade teacher, school officials were told the child might have brought a weapon to school. At least one school administrator was notified on January 6th of a possible presence of a weapon. This one gets good. Parker also said a search of the boy's backpack found nothing. When asked why school officials didn't call the police when they got that warning, Price declined CNN's request for comment, citing the ongoing investigation. Alrighty. Why? How does a 6-year-old get their hands on a gun is a great question. Why is the school trying to do enforcement of law? If you have a credible threat, and let me help you out here. Let me help you out with something. If you search my bag because you have a credible threat, or if you search my bag because you believe there's something in my bag, then that was a credible threat. There's no mental gymnastics in the world that you're going to jump through to say that it wasn't a credible threat. The moment you take action on a threat, it's a credible threat. If I get approached in a Walmart, because I wear a full-length leather trench coat, I understand that I scare people, I intimidate people. I wear a full-length duster. I've been approached by Walmart security. They've walked up to me and they say, do you have a gun on you? No. Can we search you? No, you're not law enforcement. Piss off. You're not law enforcement. So you're not searching me. And then they'll be like, well, you can't conceal carry in our store. I'll say, just to let you know, the entrance I walked in doesn't have a no concealed carry icon on it. So you can be notifying me I can't conceal carry. And I'm telling you I'm not concealed carrying, but you don't have the authority to perform a Terry frisk. Are you asking me to leave the store? And they'll get all dumbfounded. Because the problem with rent-a-cops is rent-a-cops don't have the training to know what to do when they're told no. So rent-a-cop comes up to me, are you carrying a gun? No. Well, somebody said they saw you with a gun. Well, then I suppose you should go find the other Irish guy in a leather trench coat, because I'm not carrying a firearm. Then and then you just walk away from them. See, I talked about this. I talk about this a lot. All the police officers that don't know how to engage get stopped by a police officer leaving the store. Hi, can I talk to you for a minute? No, I'm busy. I need you to stop. Am I being detained? And then they get that look at, am I being detained? And they get this look of horror on their face and they say, yes, great. Articulate your reasonable suspicion. Articulate your reasonable suspicion of the crime I've committed or that I'm about to commit or I am committing. Well, we're investigating a suspicious person. Is that felony or misdemeanor suspicious person? So you've already detained me. You've unlawfully detained me and you have now compromised your protected status. And they stare at you for a minute. So if you want to do your Terry frisk, go ahead because you've already stopped me and you've detained me. And then they try to send you on your way. Have a good day, sir. Nope, I need my stop ticket number. You're what? You stopped me. You detained me. You informed me I was legally detained. I need my stop ticket number. And then they really start to panic. Especially if you're wearing a GoPro. Yes, I'm recording you. I'm in public. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. You stopped me wearing a badge, carrying a gun, and you violated my rights, and now we're going to talk about it, right? We're going to we're gonna run this the whole 9 yards. That's why a lot of the police officers know me, and they'll be like, "Have a good day." They'll roll up and then you'll hear the Walmart people or the wherever, well, suspicious person. And they're like, he's not a suspicious person. He's a dangerous person. He's not a suspicious person. We know exactly who he is. We're not going to stop him and detain him. Unless you're 100% sure you can tell us he committed a crime, we're not stopping him. Then I get the rookies who stop me. It's like, call your shift supervisor and tell your shift supervisor it's the Irish guy in a leather trench coat and a newsboy cap. And then you'll just hear over the radio, let him go. I can't. He won't leave because I told him he was detained. But you know, until cops learn, cops aren't going to learn. When asked why school officials didn't call the police when they got that warning, he declined to comment. Officials are also unsure of where the weapon was hidden during the search of the child's backpack. I don't know, man. Maybe... And just call me crazy here. Maybe we should let when you have a credible threat of a gun in a school, maybe you should call the police and let the police take care of it. Because then maybe the police are going to do the whole, let's secure the building. Where's the gun? Call the parents. Because I'll tell you right now, this is another lawsuit waiting to happen. You had a credible threat of a gun. You performed a search. Thus validating your belief that it was a credible threat, and then somebody got shot. Bad day. This is another one you'll see here on the picture. Sorry, podcast people, we got a little picture here. We have a makeshift boat carrying migrants, as seen from the balcony of a cruise ship, Celebrity Beyond. A luxury cruise took passengers somewhere they never expected to be, face to face with the migrant crisis. Kester Howard was painting on a balcony. A nearby boat was in distress. A retiree from Australia grabbed her phone to record what was happening. Gradually, a white vessel in the distance came into focus. Look how that boat's been put together. Those poor people. You see it on TV. You never imagine to see it in real life. Days earlier, passengers aboard the Celebrity Beyond had rung in the new year with a glitzy party waving glow sticks. The ship boasts boundless views and onboard butlers and rooms so luxurious you won't want to close your eyes. No name was visible on the hull. It appeared to be cobbled together with metal and styrofoam. 19 people were crammed inside, shoulder to shoulder, and they were shouting for help. Glassman, the Fort Lauderdale City Commissioner, is well aware of the increasing number of makeshift vessels turning up on Florida shores. But seeing a rescue at sea made the situation hit even closer to home. And at dinner that night, he said many of the cruise passengers were talking about what they witnessed. Glassman and thousands of other passengers aboard the Celebrity Beyond weren't the only ones confronted with that reality. The video was shared to 3.7 million combined followers of TikTok and Instagram. It isn't news. It isn't new for cruise ships traveling through the Straits of Florida to come upon boats of Cuban migrants, but a series of recent rescues and social media posts about them have brought a fresh wave of attention to these dramatic moments. In just over a week, at least 6 such rescues occurred in the region. Carnival Sunrise picks up 7 migrants. All have been repatriated to Cuba. Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady picks up 38 migrants. 37 have been repatriated to Cuba. Carnival Dream, 28 migrants. 4 repatriated to Cuba. 6 were transported to Florida. 18 remain in Coast Guard care. Celebration, 5 migrants, all back in Cuba. Celebrity Beyond, 19 migrants, all have been released into the U.S. on parole. Now, I pulled this story for 2 reasons. Number 1, the situation in Cuba is horrible. Number 2, why is it that we send people back, we send people back, we send people back, we send people back, and then we release 19 of them into the U.S. on parole? You think the people that were released into the U.S. on parole from Cuba are ever showing up at their court date? Do you think they're ever showing up or court date? Now, this brings me back to the Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez interview. She was interviewing the director of Border Patrol, and she was angry with him because he was enforcing the phrase illegal immigrant. Right? He was enforcing the phrase illegal immigrant. And she says people who are requesting asylum are not illegal immigrants. And he said, yes, they are. If you're already in the United States and you're requesting political asylum, you're a criminal. You entered the country illegally. If you want to request political asylum, where do you do that? At the legal port of entry. I want to, for those of you that aren't familiar with this, in Europe, you know your immigration laws. People always say Europe is the height of civilization. Europeans think that the US, the way we do stuff, is bad. Then why does Europe throw so many people out of their country, not even give them a chance to go back and get their stuff? Because you do it too. You do it too. You have a zero tolerance policy for illegal immigrants. We at least have a bad policy regarding illegal immigrants. And I'm not in Europe, I'm saying Europe as a whole. Canada is worse. Yeah. If you're in Canada and you're not supposed to be there, they throw you out. You go to a US embassy too. Yes, but the likelihood of you getting political asylum from a US embassy is little to none. I don't know if you visited a US embassy. It's the only people that really get into the embassy overseas are the Americans, because if you walk up with an American passport, they let you in right away. If you show up without an American passport, you wait in line, and people stay in those lines for days, weeks, trying to get in. The U.S. Embassy can only handle so many cases a day. And most of the time, the people are asking for political asylum and they don't qualify for it. But we have, what Grumpy Old Man says is perfect example of why cruise lines are avoiding certain routes. Inconsistent always brings up the question, why? Why do we do things inconsistently? And we do it because we don't have a good policy. There is the not 1 foot on dry land policy that Florida likes to enforce. They will not bring you to dry land to deal with you. They will return you to Cuba from the Coast Guard boat. Because if they return you to Cuba from the Coast Guard boat, then you never set foot in America and you can't claim asylum. But shouldn't the rule be you have to enter legally to claim asylum? I'm on the land and I'm claiming asylum. Great. No, it doesn't work that way. Unless it's a medical emergency. Right. And then here's my problem with that. And I know I sound cold, and I know I sound heartless, and I know I sound all these things. Why is it that if you're a Cuban in the middle of the Gulf and you're having a medical crisis, we are somehow obligated to fly you to the US to a medical center and treat you? And yet there's people that will die every year, every day, every hour in America that don't have medical treatment. Again, I think that we could fix all the problems in this country if we really wanted to fix all the problems in this country. If we were really interested in fixing all the problems in this country, I believe we could. I really do. I believe that we could fix all the problems. Now, notice I said we could fix all the problems. I didn't say we could save all the people. I said we could fix all the problems. I think, without a doubt, we could fix all the problems. I think that we could provide medical care for every American. Not elective medical care, but we shouldn't have people dying in emergency rooms. We shouldn't have people dying at their homes because they're like, I can't go to the doctor because I'm going to incur such a large bill. I think hospitals are criminal. In fact, you guys know I'm currently I have insurance. My daughter has insurance. I'm still fighting an insurance bill from when my daughter lacerated her liver. Over a piece of paper. Over a single piece of paper. I faxed in the piece of... I sent the piece of paper in by mail in November. And they said it's going to take like 30 to 60 days. Well, of course, the hospital doesn't want to wait 30 to 60 days. So they bill me. And I'm like, I'm not paying this. So I called again. And they say, well, if you want it to get it to us faster, you can fax it. I said, how long does that take? And they said 5 to 7 days. And then it takes 5 to 7 days for somebody to take all the faxes off of the fax machine, scan them in. And then it takes another 10 business days to get it attached to your claim. We're living in the fucking modern era. And we're still using fax machines. Why can't I email this in? And they're like, because we don't accept it via email. Why? Because it's not a pen and ink signature. And I said, well, I hate to break this to you, but a fax doesn't count as a pen and ink signature either. And they're like, yes, it does. And I'm like, no, because it's a facsimile copy of my signature. We're not supposed to have people dying in emergency rooms. Hospitals are required to have a process by which people unable to pay for life-saving procedures can apply to have the cost waived. That's not entirely true. That's one of those. That's one of those almost right. Hospitals are not required to treat you. Not every hospital is required to treat you. Emergency rooms are required to treat you. So what do a lot of hospitals have? After-hours clinics, urgent cares. If you show up, and people are under the belief that if you show up at any hospital, they have to save your life. No, it's not true. Not every medical facility has to save your life. Emergency rooms do. I told you guys even 25 years ago, I showed up at a hospital that had an emergency room and a private clinic. And there was a concierge desk. No shit. Concierge desk when I walked down the hallway. All the guy said is, can I see your insurance card? I'm about 4 people back in line. Go to that way, go to that way, go to that way. I showed him my insurance card. He says, go to that way. I was like, what? Go to that way. So I walked down there. I'd fallen. I shattered my elbow. I got there. I walked in. Nurse met me. What's wrong? Hurt my elbow. Let's get that shirt off. Because this is how I normally dressed 25 years ago, an outer shirt. Let's get that shirt off. Let's get an X-ray. Okay. You didn't damage it as bad as you thought. We're gonna just put it in a round brace where they don't put it all the way down to the wrist. They just go around the arm with the plaster. They're like, see you back in 2 weeks. They had a private clinic because they knew they were going to get paid top dollar because top dollar insurance. Everybody else is down there. If you go to a hospital and you have a non-life-threatening emergency, the hospital doesn't have to treat you if you don't have insurance. When you go to the hospital and you have the flu, they'll kick you down to county. Do you have insurance? No. Recommend you go to county. We're not treating you. We're not required to. There is a process that you can request to get the fee waived. Absolutely. The hospital doesn't have to do it. That's the problem. The other problem is you always get the hospital's attention when you ask for an itemized bill. Yeah, this $11,000 bill or this $12,000 bill, I'm going to need you to break that down itemized for me. And then you start going through things and you find 15 times they gave you Tylenol and they charged you $80 per time. You just highlight all those and you send it back and you say, bullshit, ain't paying that because I could have bought an entire bottle of Tylenol for $22. I said, so, and this happens to people. They get 15 charges for Tylenol. They get 15 $80 charges for Tylenol. No, that's $1,200. It's just like when you're sleeping soundly at the hospital and then they wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning to give you your sleeping meds. I was asleep. Well, the doctor ordered it. No, the doctor ordered it so you can make money. Send a bottle of Tylenol with the letter. Yeah, no shit. Send an empty bottle of Tylenol and say for $1,200 I better be getting this one refilled every month for the rest of my life. Fax machines are so secure. Yeah, fax machines aren't secure. And then for anybody that's in the military, you know this one. A DD form 2527, for some odd reason, you can't, it's not a fill-in typable form. But by law, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, every DD form is supposed to be typed fillable. But it's not. It doesn't type fill in right. Because if it could be typed filled in right, then I would be able to fill out the form, digitally sign it, and send it to TRICARE, and then they wouldn't need a fax machine. These are the problems we have. But people want to stick their head in the sand. If you want to make it so that every American can get health care, then make it so every American can get health care. Now, I do want to remind you guys. Only 8.8% of Americans don't have any form of healthcare or healthcare eligibility. Only 8.8% of Americans have no healthcare or healthcare eligibility. If we have any Europeans in the house today, I want to let you know that when you hear Europeans like just dog on America for our horrible medical care, want to remind you we have more people on our federally provided medical care than you have people. I'm going to say that again. Europeans are in countries that are dogging on the United States for our bad insurance, our bad healthcare. We have more people on federally provided healthcare than you have people. We have more people. We have states with more people on state provided healthcare than your country has people. It's easy to provide healthcare when the population of your country is 18 million people, right? The population of Europe, right? The population of Europe is 746 million. If you count Russia in there, right? If you count Russia in there. But when countries like Portugal, Greece, Sweden, Hungary, Switzerland, Bulgaria, Denmark, Finland, Norway, you have 5 million people. Ireland, you have 4.9 million people. Ireland, we have more people in Cook County, Illinois than you have people. We have more people in one county, right? We have what Sullivan just said. We have counties bigger than your country. We have more people in Cook County, Illinois than Ireland has people, right? We got Denmark and Finland and Sweden talking that smack about how we should be providing better health care for our people. Your country is 10 million people. You have a country of 10 million people. We have 77 million people on Medicare. We have 7 times your number of people on our federally provided health care. With that said, right, I will tell you what is total bullshit. The process. The process is total bullshit. Medicare sucks. Medicare is horrible. Medicare is horrible. And Medicare is the top insurance. If you have Medicare and any other insurance, Medicare is your top insurance. So you have to play by Medicare's rules. Now, I will say in the last few years, under President Obama, some secret things about the Obamacare Act that, you know, in that thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of pages shit, they've made it more streamlined. I as the recipient, I'm not responsible for coordinating all this stuff. They're now responsible. Back in the day, you had to fill out your own request for referral. You had to fill out this form and give it to your doctor. And then your doctor would ask the insurance company. Now it's all automated. Like, I have a medical condition that needs to get tested periodically. And I was getting blood drawn anyway, right? And I don't like needles. If they can pull 5 vials out, or if they can pull 6 vials out instead of 5, I'd rather them do that. I'd rather get my blood drawn once a half year rather than 3 or 4 times in a half year. My PCM's really cool about it. We go to the maximum length on some of the tests so that we can catch all the other tests. Well, he said, you're getting this, and this. I said, hey, can you add on this other test? It's a cancer screening for me. And he came back a few minutes later. He's like, I can't. You've already had one, and your results, Medicare won't allow it. He's like, I just talked to the insurance person. They won't allow that test. I'm like, you just talked to the insurance person? He's like, yeah, I popped it in, it denied. I hit a little button, and it gives me a person. If Medicare has gotten to the point where the doctors can real-time communicate with the insurance companies, why can't we treat people? And why are we so concerned about screaming at the top of our lungs? Why don't we just have reasonable conversations and say, this is bad and this needs to change? This is bad, this needs to change. My daughter has a tattoo she wants to get removed. I understand why insurance companies don't pay for tattoo removal unless it's a medical necessity. I get it. I get it. They don't want to be paying for stuff that's not medically relevant. Nor do I think they should. I don't think, and believe me, my heart breaks for my daughter. She wants this tattoo removed. It causes her mental anguish. We're working on getting it paid for privately. But I get it. What about the people who got a tattoo and then they can't live with it? Now, I know some of your immediate responses, if you can't live with that tattoo, you shouldn't get it. Well, if I give you a little detail about the tattoo, it's her wedding date for her first husband, and then it's him, it's like, I love you always. I forgot what her tattoo actually says, but it's like, I love you always in his handwriting on her forearm, and he had the same thing on his. That can I would file that under a mental health exemption. I'd like to get a tattoo removed. We don't do that. It's my ex-husband. All right, we'll do that. You know, a lot of people want, a lot of people, like, we have an entire industry of urgent cares now. We have an entire industry of urgent cares, and the people they see most are hypochondriacs. Like you guys heard me say a bunch of times during the COVID bullshit. Yeah, the same one who got put in jail. Yeah, the first idiot. We have urgent cares, and my daughter's high school, well, my daughter's school district, if one sibling exhibited COVID symptoms, every sibling needed to leave the school and go get a COVID test. And I fought with the school on it. A lot of private meetings with them. A lot of private meetings with them. And I said, so when you guys get back to school in the full swing of things, if a kid is out for strep throat, every kid in the family is going to have to go get a strep test? And they said no. And I said, well, why not? Strep throat is just as contagious as COVID. And you don't treat it that way. COVID's more contagious. Really? You want to have this discussion? Because I didn't make that statement without the research. Strep throat is highly contagious. Highly contagious. Especially when you put the kids in a room and you have the heat cranked up and you shut the door, you don't have air, you don't have good air exchange. Yeah. That's why as a teacher, I would have one kid with strep throat, and then all of a sudden I'd have like 5 kids out, and then the next day I'd have 11 kids out. And then it would be like, oh, I guess we're not doing much teaching for a couple of days until everybody comes back. I'm going to give you another one. I'm all about freedom of choosing medical treatment. But did you guys know that if you're on antibiotics, the pills, You can be contagious for days, even though they say after 24 hours, the likelihood of you transmitting strep throat is minimized, but it's not zero. But if you get the shot of biocillin in the ass, within like 6 hours, you're almost healthy. That's something that if we want to fix the medical problem in this country, I think there needs to be, and I'm all for it. I'm all for the government providing way more free healthcare than they do. Hey, in order to get free healthcare, you have to be vaccinated. I don't want to be vaccinated. Well, then I guess you don't want free healthcare. And then you know that Charlie Kirk would be out there, Dr. Drew would be out there, everybody would be out there. Well, you're denying people the right to free. You're denying people the right to free healthcare because they don't want to get vaccinated. Yeah, I know. Imagine that. Maybe if vaccinations actually help cut down on the number of illnesses that you have. We talk about all the time. We want to let ranchers inject the cows with steroids and growth hormones. Please, 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 anybody who's older, please, please, please back me up here, because I don't want to sound sexist, and I'm not trying to be sexist. I'm really not trying to be sexist. I'm trying to be a realist. When I grew up in the 80s, in the early 90s, girls were flat as a board and short as shit until 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. Girls were flat as a board and short as shit. And it wasn't like one girl. It was like all the girls. They were girls. They were little girls. They were your classmates. And now all of a sudden you got kids that are 11 years old that are 5'7", and you're having a hard time trying to figure out if they're Victoria's Secret models or not. You've got boys that are at age 11 or 12, they're 6 foot tall. And it's not like a one-off freak of nature. It's literally the results of us pumping all of the food full of steroids and growth hormones. Right? And then people are looking at it and they're like, we're not going to talk about this major issue. We're going to talk about anti-vax. I think as a society, people are the problem. People don't want to look at the uncomfortable discussions. People don't want to look at the uncomfortable truths. I dislike insurance companies just as much as hospital, pharma, and the banking system. The banking system, you'd have to tell me what your problem with the banking system is. Because I don't see a big problem, unless you're talking about the banking problem that people have made out to be. The banking problem people have made out. I can afford to pay $900 a month in a rent, but I can't get a mortgage for $675 a month. And then people go and they demonize and they vilify different banks, and they say, I wasn't able to get a mortgage. I've been paying $900 a month in rent for 3 years, and I'm not able to get a mortgage. And then like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, Regions, they're all like, we did not give you a mortgage because of your debt to income ratio. We didn't give you a mortgage because we hate to let you know this, but you filed for bankruptcy, and we don't give mortgages to people who filed for bankruptcy. And then people say, well, that's discrimination. It's financial discrimination to not give a big loan to people that have had a lot of money on credit card debt or loans and then failed to pay it back. That's discrimination. I don't think that's discrimination. I think that's smart banking. Right? I want to show you guys something that absolutely sickened me that I found when I was doing the People Are the Problem prep. People are the problem. There are only two ways a manager can manage. One, in which the people are the problem, so when a problem is discovered, somebody must be blamed and fired. This is why our country sucks. This is why the world sucks. Because this is a standard textbook managerial way. If there is a problem, find the problem and blame the person responsible and fire the person. Or one is the process is the problem. So when a problem is discovered, the process is at fault, and the true cause of the failure must be understood and somehow fixed, usually by simply changing the process. People are there to administer the process, so it's a people problem. Number 2 also requires that people are willing to change the way they work, to accommodate to an ever-changing process. Every work product must be reviewed continually so that when a problem is discovered, it can be traced back to the true cause of the problem. If people are not willing to change the way they work, they could be fired, as in the first case. You know what's jacked up about that entire situation? What's jacked up about that entire situation is you're looking to fire. You're starting your entire way. You're starting your entire discussion point as you're looking for somebody to fire. That's the difference between managers and leaders. As a leader, I don't want to fire anybody. As a leader, I don't want to fire anybody because firing people takes time, effort, resources. I have to fire you. I have to deal with your unemployment claim. I have to deal with your potential lawsuit. Even if you're wrong, I got to deal with your potential lawsuit. I gotta write up a new position description. I have to advertise the position. I have to interview for the position. I have to onboard the person. I don't believe there are people who wake up every morning and say, I want to go to work and be a complete clusterfuck of a tool. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be a horrible employee today. I think, and I have seen this, I have seen people beaten down by a bad process. One of those processes I've seen people beaten down by is in the military. Security forces in the Air Force never has enough people. Because for some odd reason, we decide that we need X number of people on the base to secure the base, but we need Y number of people to deploy, and we're going to take that Y number from the X number, and then we're going to wonder why the X number isn't X equals X. So you have the situation where security forces calls out for augmentees. And when I was enlisted, I had to endure this bullshit. And some of my people would be gone for 60 days. And I would check on my people because my wife was an augmentee, and I saw how, like, my wife loved being an augmentee because she got to do a fun job as an augmentee. But her friends, her peers, they got sent to these far ass gates, no breaks, horrible work condition. And then by the end of the 60 days, they were just worn down. Well, when I was enlisted, there was nothing I could do about that. When I became an officer, I could do something about it. So I'd get people need to go for security forces augmentee duty, and then I would go over and check on them. And I had the security forces guy say, "You can't come over here and check on your people." I said, "Excuse me? I absolutely can check on my people. As long as I don't interfere with their duties, I can absolutely check on my people. And if you're telling me I can't check on my people, that lets me know I absolutely need to check on my people." And I talked to him, and I said to my boss, I wrote up a report, and I said, I'm not against us as a squadron having to do our fair share and send people over. But what I am against is that security forces uses our people, uses the augmentees for the absolute worst details, the absolute shittiest details. I'm against that. I said, if you have a detail where somebody in security forces has to embrace the suck and do the sucky job, or an augmentee has to do the sucky job, unless my augmentee can't do anything other than that sucky job, security forces embraces the suck, and you give my person the job that's not the suck. Because it's not a me problem, it's a you problem. I'm solving your problem. And unfortunately for security forces, we all had the same common boss. The LRS and security forces are both under the mission support group. And as you guys can figure out, I wrote it up I detailed it out. I sent it up to my boss's boss. Well, I sent it up to my boss. My boss sent it up to the group commander, and we had a meeting about it. And the group commander said, I do want to know why the augmentees are being put in the guard shacks with shitty air conditioning, no breaks, and the security forces people are guarding the indoor air conditioned places. And they said, well, it takes a different level of training. And the group commander said, you're telling me it takes a different level of training to teach somebody how to look at contractor badges, contractor paperwork, where everything is different and everybody's going to have a different form, a different destination, versus a room where it's checking one number on an access badge. Because you walk into a controlled area, you walk into a trap room, and you put your badge up to the door and they look to see if you have number 19 or 17 or 6 or whatever the number for that area is. And at our base, it changed. And I said, I don't have a problem with my people having to embrace the suck a little bit. And in fact, I might actually put a little note on some people when I send them over to you and say, this person needs to embrace the suck a little bit because they need to see how other people are doing. But when you get personnel from another group and you don't take care of them the same way you take care of your own people, that's management. That's not leadership. I had augmentees all the time. I had cargo yard augmentees. And I treated the cargo yard augmentees exactly the same way I treated my people. Everybody was the same. And I said to them, you're going to be an augmentee, and this is going to be a permanent part of your job while you're on this base. Because we're going to get you forklift certified. We're going to get you scale certified. We're going to get you paperwork certified. So you're not sitting here doing the crappiest job every single time we turn on the mobility machine. And those people liked it because those people got to go back and write on their performance reports like fully trained cargo yard augmentee, 4K forklift certified trained, scale trained, paperwork trained. That made that person a commodity. I had people go to different bases, email me back and say, thank you so much. Thank you so much for getting me this cross-trained functionality because now I'm doing better stuff because you didn't just make me sit there and sit at the gate and check badges. Sometimes you have to check badges. Other times you got to drive a forklift. Management and leadership is something that we don't have enough leaders in the world. I would actually go so far as to argue this. I don't think Joe Biden or Donald Trump or George Bush, either of the Bushes, or Clinton, were leaders. I think Barack Obama was a leader. I think Barack Obama was an absolute leader. I think George Bush, obviously with 9/11 happening, he got a huge, he got a huge shitburger served up to him that he had to resolve. But I don't think the last two presidents have been good. I don't think Biden's a good president. And I think what I started the show off with, you got, for the last 2 years, everyone's been screaming about Donald Trump and his classified documents and his insurrection and his this and that. And all the Democrats have been dogpiling the shit out of the Republicans. And now what happens? We find that Biden took documents as well. And he had him in his garage with his Corvette. And he had him in an office after he was the vice president. And so now where's the public outcry for a third party now? Where's the public outcry for the Jahlon party? The Paradox party? Where's the outcry to be, you know what? If like Jordan Peterson said, if you pay a price if you do, and you pay a price if you don't, then why don't we just pay the price and swallow the Jahlon party pill? Because it's going to be like, let's fix homelessness. Let's fix homelessness. Let's fix the hungry. Let's fix immigration. Do I think building a wall around your country is a bad idea? No, I don't. I don't think building a wall on the Mexican border is a bad idea. I think treating people like animals, it makes people act like animals. Joe Clark, East Side High, from Morgan Freeman portrays him in the movie Stand By Me. Lean on Me. Lean on Me. If you have cages in your school cafeteria If you treat them like animals, that's how they'll act. I worked as a security guard for 2 years, 2.5 years. I taught at night. I was trying to get a daytime teaching position. I was doing anything I could. I was an alternative night school teacher at night. But during the day, I was a security guard and a substitute. And I said, the way you want us to treat the kids is worse than the way the military treats brand new recruits. And I talked to the cops, because we had at any given time 8 to 11 cops in the building. And I talked to them and I said, the way you talk to the kids is the reason why the kids are how and why they are. I said, you're police officers, and half of you are bullies. You're bullies. And I talked to the guy that ran the security department. I said, some of these guys got to go. Some of these guys are here to just be bullies for $20 an hour. And after I went on this campaign for a little bit, not that it should matter, but it was a black school. It was a predominantly black school. And there was a black police commander who volunteered. Well, he didn't volunteer there. He got paid to work there. And he said, I'm really surprised that you spoke out about the way the white cops treat the black kids. And I said, I'm really surprised after you knowing me for all these months that you think I see white kids or black cops. Right? No, it wasn't voluntold. I was going to say he volunteered. He volunteered to work there, but he got paid $20 an hour. He didn't get his police pay. That was supplemental, additional duty. But I said to him, I'm surprised that you see that I see white kids and black cops, or white cops and black kids. I just see people. Because ever since the Morgan Freeman, Mike Wallace thing, I don't see race. I don't see race because if we keep talking about race, then we never get over it. The only time your race matters to me is if you're a black man and you need cardiac medication. You need a different medication. Well, and funny enough, African American males suffer from heart disease at a higher rate. Guess what? I take the same medication you do, because I'm at risk of heart disease. So we're all on the same meds. The only time your race matters to me is for your medical treatment. When we're treating your biological shell, you're not a black man to me. You're not a European to me. You live in Europe. When I say you're a European, it's because you live in Europe. But I combine Europe completely. But there is a huge difference between living in Ireland and living in Greece. There is a difference between living in Sweden and living in Portugal. When you take somebody from Portugal and somebody from Ireland and you put them next to each other, people are going to be confused because one of them is really white and one of them is maybe really white or maybe really dark, and they get confused. I have a African American friend, and you'll notice I air quoted that, and if you're on the podcast, I air quoted that. I have an African American friend who's third generation Irish. He's third generation Irish. His grandparents are Irish citizens. He was born in Ireland. His grandparents are Irish. His parents are Irish. He's third generation Irish, but he laughs because he's African American. Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about non-race concept on the JRE podcast. Good episode. I recommend it if people want to check it out. Yeah. But I think everybody just needs to look at the Morgan Freeman. Every time Morgan Freeman talks about race, he's the granddaddy of that discussion. So, yeah, it's Mike Wallace, Morgan Freeman, 60 Minutes. How do we stop racism? Mike Wallace says, how do we stop racism? And Morgan Freeman says, stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man. And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. And then Mike Wallace says, well, what about Black History Month? He says, I don't want it. He's like, when's White History Month? When's Jewish History Month? Morgan Freeman says to Mike Wallace, he's like, well, there's no Jewish History Month. Do you want one? And Mike Wallace says, no, I don't. And Morgan Freeman says, yeah, neither do I. Black history is American history. Black history is American history. American history is black history. We ran around and we tore down all these statues of Confederate leaders. As I close up the show, canceling history is dumb. We ran around and we tore down all these Confederate leaders. So what happens in 2 generations? People forget. People forget about the Civil War. Black is not really insult. Black isn't an insult in America either. Black isn't an insult. But again, you guys know that I always say, when I look at a group of people, I say, could you please all get together and have one term? Because it makes it easier. I don't say the black community. Because my neighbors, my neighbors are American. He's an American military member. I don't know what he is. I don't need to know what he is. All I know is a couple of months ago, when the wife knocked on my door and she had a water leak, I jumped into action and I helped my neighbor's house, right? 2 doors down from me is a little girl. My daughter's friends with the little girl. 3 doors down from me is a mechanic, an ex-military mechanic. 4 doors down from me is a military guy. On that side of me is a postman. On that side across from me is a retired Marine. Doesn't matter if they're black, white, Hispanic, whatever. I could tell you what they are, but it's completely irrelevant. African American is an American term. African American is obviously an American term because it's African American. They are either black or African of African origin. Except what's African origin? See, that's that bullshit. That's that double standard bullshit. I'm Irish American. I'm Irish American. I'm not European American. I'm Irish American. So why are they African American, but I'm Irish American, or you're English American, or you're British, or you're German American, right? Why is it that we lump all of Africa into African American? And people aren't going to like me on this one. And I'm going to tell you why it is. But we take African American and we make all black people African American because they don't know their origins. They don't know their roots. Some of them do. I love an actual African American who's like, they refer to him as an African American. He's like, no, I'm from Angola. No, I'm from Mali. No, I'm from Ethiopia. I'm from Somalia. I'm from Kenya. And Elon Musk is African American. That's why it's so stupid. He's South African. But I had a guy from Kenya. He was introduced at a conference. He was their guest speaker. And they introduced him as African American community leader, blah blah blah. He gets up there with this look of disdain on his face. And he didn't address the audience. He looked to the side of the people who just introduced him and he says, "Hi, my name is this, and I'm Kenyan, not African American. I'm from Kenya." And then he turned and he looked at the class. And it was like, at that moment, it was like this ultimate bitch slap to the people who at that point you knew it was just a bunch of racism anyway. Too many countries. No, it's not too many countries. Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, Portugal, Spain, Greece, Italy, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Switzerland, Germany, Lithuania, Poland, Czechoslovakia, the Ukraine. I didn't even hit all of them. I just kind of danced around the edges. What do you mean that Africa has too many countries in it? That's that racism I'm talking about. It's that racist shit you don't even know you say. Oh, you're talking about too many countries. You're too many. You're Irish, English, German, American. Got it. Okay. I got it. We had a little disconnect there. You're Celtic, Germanic, American. I'm going to help you out here a second. If you're Irish, English, German, American, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to tell you what you are. You're American. Unless you're first generation and you got one grandparent from Ireland, you got one grandparent from Germany, you got one grandparent from England, and you got one grandparent from somewhere else. If you're doing like the minor percentages, if your parents were born in America and your grandparents were born in America, you're American. And we talk about people are the problem, just to close the show up. We talk about people are the problem. Nowhere else in the world that I know of do people hold on to their hyphenations as long as Americans do. I'm Irish American. My dad's off the boat. I got Irish paperwork. My dad's off the boat. Literally off the boat. Not even a plane. He's off the boat. My dad is off the boat Irish. Okay? I'm first generation American. My kids try to say I'm Irish. But my kids are talking. I say, no, you're not Irish. You're American. You're American. When my kids are like, I'm Irish, I'm like, really? What Irish traditions do we follow? My kids aren't Irish Catholic. I'm Irish Catholic. My kids aren't Irish Catholic. I say to them, you weren't brought up in the church, which automatically, if my kids went to Ireland, my kids would be ostracized by my family because they'd be like, you don't go to church. You don't go to church on Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. You don't go to reconciliation every week. You're not, because that's part of the culture. My kids are like, well, I'm Mexican then. Really? ¿Tu habla español? En la casa? ¿Con su madre? Dad, what are you saying? That's the problem. You're not Mexican. You're American. But now I'm going to tell you why do Mexican Americans hold on to their hyphenation. My daughter is Mexican American. 50% of college right there. Boom. People are the problem. People are the problem because we got a bunch of bad rules. We got a bunch of bad rules going on. We got a bunch of bad setups. We got a bunch of bad scenarios. And we can't ever fix it until we talk about it. We can talk about it. And we got to talk about it. But I can talk about schools. But until we fix people, what do we teach in the schools? Until we fix people that there's a credible threat of a gun in a school, I don't want the superintendent of the school district trying to be the cop. You got a credible threat of a gun in a kid's backpack. Call the police. Hey, I got a credible threat. What's the credible threat? Blah, 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 blah. How do you know it's a credible threat? Because I want to search the backpack. The moment a threat turns into an action, that's credibility. Aliens are real. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Aliens are landing today. Maybe I load the gun. Maybe I don't. If I go and I load the gun, then I believe that the threat is real. There's going to be widespread looting during COVID. Sure. I told you guys the story just to close up. Credibility of a threat. There was a protest about 16 miles away from here. The protest got shut down. The protesters said they were going to come to our small ass town because we only have 6 cops. At the time, we only had 6 cops. So the protesters were telling people to reconvene in our small town. And they weren't protesters, they were looters and rioters, just so we're clear. They went to the commercial sector of the nearby town, and everybody rolled out. Police, every municipality rolled out cops, state police rolled out, the sheriff rolled people out. The sheriff borrowed people from the other 3 counties that neighbor us. They showed up like 100 strong, and they said, we're thinking about asking the military for help to break you up. So they said, let's go to this small town that they don't have a police force. There's only 3 ways into our town. We are a zombie apocalypse proof town. We've got 3 roads in. The local little gun boys, the militia boys, they took that as their opportunity to defend their hometown. So they posted on this post of we're moving the protest to this little small town. They all got together. There's like 3 or 4 pickup trucks worth of them with more guns than people. And they said, yeah, come in. The militia's here to maintain law and order. They didn't show up. They went somewhere else. With that said, I love the Saturday show, guys. I love the show. I keep this show to 2 hours. Every Saturday, we do this show. I do this show so that you have a place to come. I was hoping Sparky was going to show up so that we could have talked about the chickens, because Sparky's comment yesterday about the chickens kind of put this one in perspective. Every Saturday, 11 o'clock Eastern, I do this show for 2 hours. I am going to shamelessly shill real quick. For those of you that aren't part of my other programs, I am running a Kickstarter for a project. Take that link, check it out, share it with your friends. We've kind of hit a brick wall in the funding. So if you can share it around, I'd appreciate it. It helps pay for, it's going to be for music, not the EDM music that I play on this show, but other music. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to do all the things I got to do to this show. And then if you're familiar with my other shows, this will be a Twitch shout out. I will be back sometime this afternoon to start a playthrough on Final Fantasy XIV. Until then, you guys can message me on Twitter, or message me on Discord. You can tweet at me, whatever. Keep sending me good talking points. I love doing the Saturday show because it gives me something to do. I will see you guys next week.